everybody? Thank you for tuning in. So today I'm going to show you how to change out the water pump in an A20. So some of the common symptoms on a water pump failure is usually like bearing noise, such as like whine, grinding type sounds, or obviously the overheating if you fix everything else within the coolant system and water pump hasn't been changed out. Another thing is the internal seal could be going or is gone, and some in my case that's pretty much what happened. There's a weep hole in the bottom, at least for the OEM spec water pump. There's a weep hole that is supposed to drip to basically to divide basically the oils of the bearing and the coolant itself. So once that goes, there'll be a consistent leak from that weep hole in the water pump. So in my case, if that happens, obviously it's time to change out the water pump. Some common causes of like bearing failure, more than likely, is if you guys are changing the alternator or whatever, or if you have the alternator belt or accessory belt too tight, then that can cause premature bearing failure in the pulley system itself. So make sure to go within spec on that and not to have the belts too tight, because they do tension as soon as they start winding up. So keep that in mind. So some keynotes to keep in mind. So from the both hatchback as well as my coupe, one being an A20A1 and A20A3, I've only ever had to change a water pump on both of them one time. And from my personal experience, I've had to change them at around the 250,000 plus mark. So I can't really remember exactly where. So OEM pumps usually last pretty long. I mean, if you guys want to change them sooner, like after you guys had like 100,000 miles or whatnot, 150,000 miles, there's no problems changing it out, even if there's nothing wrong with your water pump. If you feel to do so, no problems doing that. But they do last pretty long if pretty much everything, especially belt tension, is kept within spec. Something to note, usually most of the times, if you guys were to go to like an auto parts store such as AutoZone, Napa, O'Reilly's, CarQuest, when you order a new pump, usually it does not come with a pulley. So be sure to retain that pulley and be careful when you remove those 3 pulley bolts on there. They are traditional right-hand threads, so lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, unlike the power steering pump pulley. So that's left-hand thread, so that's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty on that. Just keep that in mind. Another thing I would like to add, on the A20 in particular, the OEM water pump failure was actually caused by a bearing failure. I actually could hear it inside the car, of like the grinding noise, whining noise. It's pretty distinct, especially driving inside your vehicle with full interior. And as far as the coupe, it's my first time dealing with a failing water pump due to it leaking from the weep hole, which is a sign of, as I said before, a failing seal inside the water pump itself. So as you can probably see, I already took everything off, so I just put everything back on just for demonstration purposes of what you guys have to deal with. So the first thing you need to do is loosen the accessory belt tensioner bolt right here. Everything on this bracket area is going to be 12 millimeters, so 12 millimeter. This is not OEM by any means, but I'm pretty sure that long bolt is also going to be 12 millimeter. 12 millimeter nut, 12 millimeter bolt. So you need to take this off first. Not drop it like I did. Okay. I'm probably going to drop this one too. Maybe not. Okay, and I said this setup is a lot different. If you guys have looked back and seen my installing a 4th generation Accord CV7 alternator into your 3rd gen, check that out. This explains why this setup is a lot different than your situation, your setup. Sorry. Okay, and then bring this towards the pulley, lift up, and then take off the alternator bracket. Push the alternator forward, take the belt off, so fall back. You don't need to loosen you may have to loosen that bottom bolt right here for the alternator to move back and forth. Okay, so in this step, you could have gone about it 2 ways. So I'm sorry I didn't mention this before. So keep the belt on if you want to, and find some way to prevent the accessory belt from moving. And you try to want to loosen the 3 bolts that are on here. They're gonna be 10 millimeter. I know like that bolt looks nothing like OEM. It's because I had to replace them because I kind of gnarled them up when I was removing them. So anyway, if you want to remove at least loosen these original 3 bolts, which are going to be 10 millimeter to remove, while the water pump is still in the vehicle. Find some way to keep the accessory belt from moving and then just crack loose these 3 bolts and then just remove them once the entire water pump is out. Or you can take the whole water pump out, put it in some vise, or find some way to where someone can hold that pulley for you and then crack them loose that way. From factory spec, they should be torqued down to 9 foot-pounds, all of them, the bolts on the pulley as well as the water pump to the block. So the reason why I suggest actually removing the pulley while the water pump is still installed on the block is because to be able to get to all 4 of the bolts that are mounting the water pump to the block, it'd be a lot easier to access them with the pulley off. It is doable with the pulley on, it's just more of a pain, especially for 1 bolt, which I'll show you here in a second. Alright, so you're gonna have 4 bolts holding it, 1 here, 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 and then 1 right there. This one, the timing belt tensioner, that one is the biggest pain to get to. You may need a socket with a swivel. You may get it with a open end. Sorry about it, guys, I'm turning up this. There we go. So what I suggest is break loose all these bolts first. Sorry about the background noise. Break them loose in like an even order, like break this loose and break that. It's like star pattern, just pretty much kind of like, you don't have to, but rule of thumb I usually do, just to prevent like uneven tension where you might end up damaging stuff, but more likely it won't happen. Okay, I'm gonna pull the water pump out. Now when you do this, there's gonna be coolant rushing out of here, so make sure to have the pan ready below this. Damn, that's what it looks like. Okay, here it is. This one, so reference bottom, top. So that's the weep hole I was talking about. That had a consistent leak, which was basically a symptom of telling you that the seals inside or the bearing is failing or is about to fail. So, which is the time to replace this. So, pump in here. If I can open it with one hand. I don't think it should be a problem. If I can do this while filming. Cool, perfect. Different design, but it'll work. And there you go. Comes with a seal, which obviously plays like this. Now, I ordered a separate seal off Amazon, which was the last one I found because I actually thought it was a seal failure, why you actually see all this excess, sorry, focus here real quick. Come on, camera, do your job. There we go, shoe fly. Yeah, that's why you'll see the excess Honda bond that I put on here, which honestly did more than enough of doing its job, but unfortunately it didn't fix the problem that I have. Oh, and a note, do not plug this. It will not fix the problem that your water pump already has. So here's the seal for it if you ever just need an extra one. I'll drop that and break it already. There's the item number in case you guys need to look for one. Okay, so installation's reverse order. Just make sure that if somebody already replaced the water pump before and they use some sort of RTV or Honda bond or whatever, you see right here, just make sure you clean all this stuff off. Do not install the new water pump with any of this, and make sure none of it gets in the housing as well. The last thing you want is Honda bond mixed in with your coolant system, along with anything else that shouldn't be mixed in your coolant system. So I'm going to continue to take this stuff off, and then I'll put the new water pump on. The water pump's on. I'm gonna proceed to now torque it down to 9 foot-pounds. Okay, everything's back on. I just hand tightened the pulley bolts on here. This is all torqued down 9 foot-pounds. Make sure these 12mm bolts are back in. 1, 2. Okay, this is going to be different obviously for your. Make sure you have your adjustment bolts set. Make sure the belt's not too tight, or else you're going to end up damaging the bearings and the pulleys, both alternator as well as water pump. Now, how I'm going to tighten these 9 foot-pound with a torque wrench is I'm going to do the top ones here. I'm going to rotate it by turning the crank down here. And yeah, so that's how I'm going to proceed to go do this. One, so you guys get an example of how to do it. Oh wait, yeah, forgot this isn't 10mm. Because I had to get new hardware. It is going to be 10mm for you guys using the original bolts. Okay, and there you go. Just do the same thing for all three. Make sure when you put the pulley back on that you have this black piece, and it should be set to go. Okay. Turn the crank. And same thing, 9 foot-pounds. Okay, all that's left to do now is just to refill the coolant that was lost. Just do your 50-50. Now, right now I have a 70-30 mix right now, just because in a couple days in Arizona it's about to hit about 100 degrees or more. So you guys definitely just do the 50-50 depending on where you guys live, or do whatever you guys want. But this is how I do it. If I just get a gallon like this, it's pretty cool because they actually label it, so half gallon or halfway mark will be 64 ounces. So you can put like 50-50 mix would be like coolant up to here, then distilled water all the way up to here. I put a little bit extra because I just had a little bit remaining. It's kind of pointless. And, oh hey, I got a floater in there. I should probably fix that. The radiator is topped off with coolant. This isn't really a coolant flush video, but I'll just give you a quick guide to it. So once the radiator is topped off, make sure to squeeze this up radiator hose to burp the system. So pretty much fill this up until it stops draining. It's at a steady level. Squeeze that so you see bubbles come up, and when there's no more bubbles coming up and the coolant will no longer drain into the radiator and whatnot, then you should be good to go. Close that up. Now, unlike some of the newer Civics and stuff that don't have a bleed bolt, the bleed bolt's located right here next to the TW sensor and temperature sensor or temperature setting unit. So basically, once this vehicle started, gets up to operating temperature and the thermostat opens up, you want to turn this, loosen this up until you see coolant shoot out of it, until you see a consistent flow. Once you see a consistent flow, which should take a couple seconds, you just tighten that down. If you want to get specific, it's 7 foot-pounds of torque to tighten that down, but you don't really need too much. You don't need to tighten this too much. So yeah, once the vehicle's on and coolant starts circulating to the system, make sure you have the heater on full blast, just so all the coolant and stuff can go through the heater core as well. And if the vehicle holds operating temp, then you should be good to go. So yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.